Hello, and welcome to the BNP Paribas Asset Management Talking Heads podcast. Every week, Talking Heads will bring you in-depth insights and analysis through the lens of sustainability on the topics that really matter to investors. In this episode, we'll be discussing the importance of inequality for investors. I'm Daniel Morris, Chief Market Strategist, and I'm joined today by Sindhu Janakiraman, Equality Lead and ESG Analyst. Welcome, Sindhu, and thanks for joining me.
Great to be here.
Sindhu, we've been talking at BNP Paribas Asset Management about ESG, environmental, social, and governance for many years. The focus has been a lot on the environmental part, certainly around climate change. Today, we'd like to look more at the S, the social bit, and in particular, inequality. Maybe you could help us out with the definition.
It's true that the focus has been on the E for far too long. Our conviction is that inequality underpins and reinforces many of today's social issues that investors have historically addressed in a piecemeal fashion, like taking on working conditions and supplier factories, board diversity, or corporate non-discrimination policies. Those all have to do with inequality. We define it as the inequitable distribution of income, wealth, and well-being. And we're seeing right now that differences in income and wealth are at their greatest since the 1910s. And that's led to a loss of productivity as wages have failed to keep up with inflation, as geopolitical shocks and COVID-19 have exacerbated health inequities. So right now is a very pressing time for us to be discussing this issue.
One response might be, though, Sindhu, is that inequality has always existed to one degree or another. But we're an asset manager. Can you maybe help us with the connection then between inequality and why it matters to investors? Is it something that's financially material?
It is financial material, and I'll get to that in just one moment. We don't want to challenge the benefits of our global capitalist system or the benefits of competition for wealth creation, for innovation, even for societal well-being, as billions of people have been lifted out of poverty. And competition naturally produces winners and losers. We seek to address unfair competition, which produces fixed categories of winners and losers. Structural inequality is what our strategy seeks to address. It robs us of two necessary preconditions for a healthy society and a stable economy, which are equality of opportunity and well-functioning social mobility. Let me answer the financial piece. Our conviction is that inequality risk can manifest systemically in the market and at the company level, presenting both risks and opportunities for investors. First and foremost, it presents a systemic risk. It limits growth potential, it exacerbates vulnerabilities in the financial system, it multiplies threats, both acute like COVID-19 and long-term such as climate change. As fiduciaries, it's important for us to explore and mitigate risks to the market. Second, and more concretely, inequality matters for individual company performance as well. Our conviction is that companies that strengthen equality within their workforce through material benefits like living wages or strong values such as diversity, equity, inclusion policies are more attractive places to work and should therefore be more likely to thrive in a competitive market. Research suggests that high levels of employee satisfaction generate superior long-term returns. The evidence points that when you have a more equal workplace and when companies value equality practices, that's going to lead to financial outperformance.
I mentioned at the beginning, Sindhu, that we were going to focus more on the S instead of on the E, but actually I would like to loop back to the environment. Is there an impact of inequality on climate change?
Yes, inequality and climate risk are intrinsically linked, and our ability to combat climate risk with climate action and climate policies is also impacted by inequality. First, higher wealth correlates with higher per capita greenhouse gas emissions, and poor countries that emit the least GHG emissions often bear the brunt of this impact. We've seen this in recent COP conferences when Caribbean nations banded together and said we can't be expected to pay the costs without receiving any of the benefits of industrialization. In their sixth assessment report, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, concluded that adverse impacts of climate change and inequality exacerbate each other. And these impacts disproportionately affect marginalized groups, amplifying inequalities and undermining sustainable development. the failure to address inequality can backfire, which undermines climate action. So this double bind is why inequality must be included as a factor in any climate policies. And we at BNP Paribas Asset Management take it into account. We saw that in recent farmer protests in the EU against the EU's common agricultural policy, which sets subsidies and environmental conditions for the sector, people were driving their tractors onto the streets and highways to protest those agricultural policies, which nominally reduce pesticide use and therefore reduce greenhouse gas emissions globally, which has the effect of supporting the most vulnerable people. So unless we use this just transition or way to include those that are left behind in the green policies that we're enacting, we risk a climate action backlash and we risk our ability to meet net zero transition targets.
If I could summarize a couple of the key points. We started out with the definition of inequality, which you said was an inequitable distribution of income, wealth, and well-being. But you pointed out inequality has always existed. The goal is not to try to eliminate it, but what BNP Paribas Asset Management is trying to do is to address the structural inequalities. Why is it important to investors? Well, it's a systemic risk. It has an impact on economic growth potential. It matters at a company level. Companies that reduce inequality can generate superior financial returns. And then another very important reason is the inextricable link between inequality and climate change. Well, Sindhu, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me.
That's it for this week's episode of Talking Heads. If you would like more information, please reach out to your BNP Paribas Asset Management contact or check out Viewpoint, our website for investment insights at viewpoint.bnpparibas-am.com. Viewpoint brings commentary and analysis in a variety of formats, from investment outlooks to asset allocation videos and podcasts, to help investors make better informed decisions. You've been listening to the BNP Paribas Asset Management Talking Heads podcast with me, Daniel Morris, and Sindhu Janakaram. Please do join me next week. Until then, take care.
This presentation includes a discussion on current market events and is not intended as investment advice or an offer of products or services by BNP Paribas Asset Management. Please keep in mind that the information and analysis in this presentation is only current as of the publication date.